Ask AJ.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I've seen in the last 5 years start to emerge is a difference in how executive teams are looking at some of these things. And so the transformation term continues to get used, and yet they structure their project teams or they empower their organizations differently to focus more on transitional quick win things, right? So, it's fine if you want to have a digital capability, you want to have a COE that's set up to go and deliver that within your organization. Yeah, that's a good leading practice, and we would recommend that you do that. It focuses the organization, it builds capability, and it gives you some internal control of what you're doing. So that's all goodness. From there, though, it is, what are you directing that COE to do, and how is that COE engaging with the business? That method of engagement will inform whether or not you're going to undertake something transformational. And does that team then have the blessing and permission of the leadership team to go do that? Or are they a day-to-day operation, much like a continuous improvement COE? And so there's really not a lot of consideration given to how we provide a mandate to these centers of excellence or these delivery teams. And so you get some confusion. And I know you and I have lived this with your client where, the intent was, I want differentiated value to come from my automation. The team then gets structured in a way that, you're federating back out to the business. You're not infusing it with any different thinking. You're trying to drive a timeline that is actually running counter to an investment that's going to drive a transformational outcome. So again, I'm looking for quarter-over-quarter results. I'm not going to get a transformational outcome. I can't implement the technology, change the jobs, train the people, transition them to new jobs. That transition alone, doesn't matter how big a process it is, takes time.
Yeah.
If you're looking quarter-over-quarter, you're going to get incremental transitional improvement.
Well, and that leads directly to one of the other things we've talked about so much. It's allowing the organization and having the right approach and methodology to helping the organization change. I think one of the things we said in the article, change management is one of those things that everybody talks about and talks about how important it is, and then maybe they don't invest in it. A lot of times they don't invest in it, right? And because it's more than a series of well-crafted communications coming from HR, right? It's more than that. And so I think, the other struggle that I think that we've seen is in the change management approach. It's how are we really, and more than just how we're preparing our people for that change, but how we're preparing other parts of the organization for it. And it's just a struggle. And it's oftentimes something that is not given the level of importance to understand that, solid change management and the ability to manage through it is a discipline. It's not just a series of check boxes on a project plan. It's a discipline in understanding your staff, understanding your people, and understanding, how to help them manage their way through a true transformation. You're going to get it in transition too, but a true transformation is going to require that you manage people through that change.
I mean, the old saying used to be, change management is a well-written memo, and nothing could be further from the truth. And I think to this day, there's a hangover of change management is about communication from the center out.
Yeah.
Right, from the project team out. This is what we're doing, and I want everyone to be aware of it. And that is somehow change management, as opposed to when you think about all the things that need to be considered. From stakeholder engagement, and not just stakeholder engagement, but before you engage with them, do you understand who your stakeholders are in this organization? Who's going to be affected? What are their motivations? How does that actually trace back to incentives, KPIs, right? How am I engaging them in the design process? How am I challenging the status quo through that? what is the appetite for them to change the status quo? What other things are happening in the organization, being at least aware of other in-flight initiatives?
Yeah.
Then you move forward to, now I have to affect the change. So how do I be thoughtful around the impact on the team when I move through build, test, deploy cycles? Because that is impactful of people's day-to-day jobs. I just need, there's an awareness there. Then you need to go further down to, okay, now I've designed a new process, I've put a new technology in place. How do I train people on that? Right? How do I make the effective transition just from a practical perspective from, AJ doing this job today to tomorrow doing a different job? How do I affect that transition over time when I'm looking at potentially thousands of effective people doing that? How do I train them? How do I create retention plans, for those who, may not want to adopt that technology, may choose to exit or do something different? That training and then the cutover deployment and then support on the back end. All of these things need to be done in addition to just the communications to the organization. This is what we're doing. Isn't this great? And sort of building the raw, the motivation, the momentum behind a program. And change management gets focused on all of the build the momentum pieces and none of the hard part of engaging at a individual level and understanding those motivations and helping people through that journey. And that's the big difference in terms of how we contemplate a change management program.
Well, and obviously, it's not easy. You're you're moving from dealing with data and facts and deadlines to emotions to, people's concerns about their own well-being, and that's obviously a whole different ballgame than just managing, turning a switch from this piece of technology to this technology. And I think that I think that perhaps makes people shy away from putting enough effort into it. I know that there are, I've experienced in my own career before Symphony, leaders who are taking someone through a fairly big transition or transformation who didn't really value the formal value of change management, right? It was catch as catch can. Everybody is kind of on their own. There wasn't an organized approach to it. So this is, this particular piece of the topic is somewhat personal to me because I've lived through it in my ops career. But it's so, again, I think the sense of success or failure comes from this idea that not only are you meeting whatever KPIs and metrics that you've hit in terms of your ability to perform or your ability to reduce cost or whatever the case may be, but it's the willingness of the people in your organization to accept it. You know as well as I do that sometimes, especially with transitionary changes, people will often revert back to what it was that they did before or do things in a very similar way they've done before and mitigate the impact of whatever it was the work that you had done. If you're transforming things, if you're taking a transformational mindset, then you're engaging people through that change management process to understand why it's important to them on a professional and personal level as well. Not just what the organization gets out of it, but the professional and personal aspects of it for them to kind of go along with the new state of the way things are being done.
I mean, you're right. It's certainly transitional change. It leaves open the ability to revert back because frankly, the journey back is not that hard because a transition by definition is an incremental change. I can revert back, and unless both the front end and back end of that process have changed, right? So you've got the stickiness and the continuity. Yeah, there may or may not be a real incentive to change. Transformation comes with. I wish I could remember what the context of the metaphor is, but the metaphor is sort of a military metaphor: burn all the bridges, right?
Yeah.
Which is, transformation comes with burn all the bridges behind you because there is no going back.
Yeah.
you literally, once I've made that change, I've fundamentally changed how things are being executed. Going back is now really hard
Yeah.
for the. Now, the other thing I would say is there will be fatigue in any organization around transformation. You noted this earlier. You really only get so many times you can come back and change someone's job fundamentally.
Right.
People do get exhausted with that, and frankly, they also get exhausted with if a company's saying, "Look, we're transforming it again for the third time this year." There will be a bit of an eye roll, and you will lack some credibility with that. So, whether you're thinking about it from a functional basis, right, are you looking at an entire supply chain procurement organization? Are you looking at a complete, a post-merger integration is a great transformation in many cases, right? But it is enterprise-wide. And that may take a few years to cycle through. To then say, I'm going to immediately start doing others right on the back end of that is going to be really hard to get those off the ground. So I think you do need to be thoughtful around, okay, when I'm going to do transformation, what part of the organization am I impacting? Do I have the leadership in place to enable that? Am I giving them not just the economic budget, but the time budget to accomplish what we think is necessary? And have I also sort of given them enough relief to accomplish that? And by relief, I mean sort of front end, back end. They don't have other stuff to do during the day, and they're not being attacked from 4 other fronts.
Yeah.
I've got a finance organization. They're going through something, and then someone else is asking them to do an analytics gig, and someone else is asking, for a supply chain gig that's tackling the same people. The processes start here. So you just got to be thoughtful around that if that's what you want to go.